It looks like Tommy Lee Jones's daughter had been having issues for quite some time. There was even talks of a conservatorship a few years before her death. Let's go ahead and get updated. Hey guys, this is Julez. Welcome to my second channel. Now, we talked about this and how the information coming out about Will Smith's most recent harassment lawsuit and the death of Tommy Lee Jones's daughter was being announced at around the exact same time. And I just personally found it a little strange because these two have been connected through Men in Black for like decades now. When it comes to people my age, that's how we connect these two people. When we see them, that's what our brains automatically do. So considering the fact that they did have a connection already, two life-changing, very traumatic things happening in the public at the same time was interesting. Now, looking further into what had been going on with Tommy Lee Jones's daughter, it seems like this stuff was going on for quite a while. We're going to go over the 3 incidents that took place in 2025 prior to her death in way of cops, the law, the justice system, what was going to be happening because of these run-ins that she had. And we're going to talk about a conservatorship that Tommy Lee Jones actually had approved, but then for some reason a few months later backtracked from, even though there was obvious issues going on with his daughter, Victoria. So again, the first thing we're going to do is talk about what happened in way of Victoria dealing with the police. It says that back on February 11th, 2025, deputies were called from Napa County Sheriff's Office to respond to a 911 hang-up call. Now, apparently, when the police got there, they were told that there was shouting going on, there was a fight going on, some sort of DV incident. And the wording here is kind of weird, in my opinion. In my world, I would have just said, she slapped him. Instead, they say, at one point, Jones's palm had hit the other person in the face. Weird way to put it. Now, the person that she slapped did not want to press charges, but they are calling it the first arrest. The second arrest came in April, on April 26, 2025, early morning hours. Apparently, the police were sent out to the exact same address on a welfare check. Now, this one is sort of interesting because California, obviously, from the way their streets look, from the way that they handle things, have a very lax law when it comes to substances, and especially a very lax law when it comes to substances in public and people being on substances in public. They have entire blocks full of people that are obviously just finted out all over the place and nobody does anything. So this next one is kind of interesting considering the fact that she was in her own house. She wasn't out in the public. So it goes on to say that she appeared to be under the influence of a controlled substance, and she admitted to using earlier in the evening. Apparently, they found evidence of this substance in her house, and she was arrested on suspicion of possession of a controlled substance, which I don't know how it's suspicion if they have physical evidence and she's admitting it. How the frick is it still suspicion at that point? Also, being under the influence and then resisting a peace officer. So I understand the resisting arrest thing, but being charged for being under the influence in your own house is odd. Again, I understand the substance charges, illegal no matter if it's in or out of your home. But to then be charged for being under the influence, it doesn't sound like another person was involved. Then again, I haven't read the police report. And I don't know if her significant other was involved in this situation or not because it doesn't mention them. Now, she originally pleaded not guilty, but from what everything else has said that we have read up until this point, and I am recording this on January 7th, 2026, she had decided to plead guilty, and that settlement hearing was supposed to take place on, I believe it was January 20th of 2026, just a few weeks after she was found dead in that hallway. Now, as that situation was obviously still going on in court, a third incident took place at a hotel in Santa Rosa off of the Sonoma Highway. It doesn't give the name of the hotel, but it says that on June 13th, 2025, deputies were dispatched. She became really aggravated during an argument and slapped someone again. The same someone, actually, according to reports. It's her husband. Her spouse is actually how this person is being labeled. And look, I've been through that. I've dealt with situations and didn't leave the right way like I was supposed to, and ended up dealing with even more DV situations. But then I left like I was supposed to, and the DV situations just got even worse. Hence why we had to flee hours and hours and hours away with nothing hardly in way of what we had in order to get away from the situation and start fresh where we are now. That's another reason the whole being under the influence when she's in her own house thing is kind of strange to me, because in my situations, my ex only ever was charged for being under the influence, even though he was under the influence of more than one thing during all of these situations, once. And that's because he got in the vehicle and drove away trying to flee as we were filling out the police reports in a church parking lot. He never got charged with being under the influence for anything he physically did to us, no matter how ridiculously extreme the charges were that he ended up getting. And again, this is Texas, this is California. They do things differently. California is so much more lax when it comes to these things. I'm honestly just really surprised they charged her with that. Now, let's talk about the conservatorship, because apparently about 2 years before Victoria was found dead, there was information filed with the courts for Tommy Lee Jones to start a conservatorship because he felt as if Victoria was a danger to herself, a danger to others. Apparently, it was approved. But then a few months later, he then petitioned the court to have it removed, which I don't really quite understand that concept. If you're going to go through all that process, have it actually approved by a judge, go through the steps, and then a few months later try to remove it, what was the point to do it to begin with? I would have kept it on as long as I possibly needed to make sure that my child was going to be alive and was getting the help they needed. Now, granted, it doesn't matter what you want for someone. If they don't want it for themselves, it doesn't matter the amount of love, the amount of support, the amount of emotions you show, the amount of money you throw into it. It doesn't matter. If the person's not ready, it's not going to do anything but cause more trauma to everyone involved, including the person who's trying to actually help them. But it does go on to say that even through this conservatorship, when it was approved, that Victoria was fighting back on everything. She didn't go straight to the rehab facility from the hospital like she was supposed to in the agreement. She didn't want to do inpatient therapy. She wanted some sort of outpatient rehabilitation. She fought back on all of it. And again, this was done about 2 years ago, back in August of 2023. And even when that paperwork was filed 2 years ago, there were several years worth of instances in the paperwork that led up to Tommy Lee Jones feeling like he needed to do this. But again, for him to just remove it a few months later, I'm not really quite understanding that. But all of the reports that I've been reading over the past few days are all claiming pretty much the same thing unofficially. They don't believe it's foul play, and they do believe it was some sort of accidental situation. Now, I don't know at this point in time if her and the spouse are still together. I don't know if he was with her at this hotel like he was at the other hotel in the other instance. I don't know. We'll get more information out here soon, hopefully. But until then, let me know what you guys are thinking about this down in the comments. And I will be getting episode 3 of Everybody is Dying out here really, really soon. I'm also going to do a separate video because it looks like we've had 4 politically, I want to say, related deaths all within like a week. And I don't mean people like purposely were taken out because of politics the way that we saw with Charlie Kirk. I mean people related to people in politics and people in politics have all died within like a week of each other. And we usually don't see that kind of coincidence. So we're going to talk about that. As coincidental as it might be, it's still interesting to see the patterns that are emerging here. And I again have like 2 videos full of well-known named people that have passed away over the past few weeks since around Christmas time. It's just been really, really just a big, huge avalanche snowball. It really has. But again, let me know what you guys are thinking about all of this stuff down in the comments. Like, share. See y'all.